Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another meeting of the Space Coast Progressive Alliance. My name is Phil Stasek. I'm the past president, and I will be your host for tonight. Tonight, we're going to be talking about running progressive in Brevard in 2020. Some candid conversations with the candidates. And of course, not everybody is progressive. Some would probably consider themselves moderate. But it's a chance for us to look back at the 2020 elections locally. There is a wonderful philosophy in politics that says all politics is local. And even though everybody focuses their attention on the White House or perhaps in the Senate or even Congress, frankly, the most important action in our democracy really happens on the local level. So we have a wonderful group of local candidates, some of whom won and some didn't quite make it. But honestly, we are very, very honored to have with us right now. We've got Lloyd Dobbs, who ran for Florida State House District 52. We have Jim Kennedy, who ran for the U.S. Congress District 8. Joan Majid, who ran for Florida State House District 51. Daniel McDowell, who ran for the West Melbourne City Council. Yvonne Minus, who ran for the Melbourne City Council. Phil Moore, who ran for the Florida State House District 53. And Nina Yoakum, who ran for Florida State House District 50. We have several.
We also have Sanjay Patel, who joined us.
Sanjay has just joined us. Wonderful. Sanjay ran for the County Commission District 3 here in Brevard County. So we have a wonderful group of candidates. And tonight's event is going to be less formal than some of our other SCPA events. We're going to actually encourage each of our candidates to, first of all, have 5 minutes to do an opening statement. They can talk about anything they want. We're encouraging them to tell their personal story, why they ran, what they saw, but they can talk about anything they like. And it is an honor to have all of them. So each of these candidates, again, will have 5 minutes. And then when they're all done, then we open the floor to Q&A for those of you that have joined us on Zoom. And we'll talk more about that as we get going in the meeting. But basically, we encourage you, just if you want to talk, raise your hand. We encourage you to try to keep your question to 2 minutes. And we ask that you do please make it a question, not just a statement. So we welcome all of you guests. We welcome all of our wonderful candidate speakers tonight. And I would like to remind everybody that is a member of the Space Coast Progressive Alliance that our nominations, so we're having our own election. Our nominations for our own officers and the SCPA board are now open. If anybody would like to run, anybody would like to put their name into the hat for SCPA positions, contact Raed Al-Shaibi, our vice president. And I'm not sure, Raed, are you on board, and would you like to talk to the group right now about the elections or anything else?
You'll have to take Raed off the mute.
So, Raed, I'm not sure if you...
Here we go. I can take him off.
Are you with us, Raed?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thank you, Phil. And I want to thank everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good to see you, Phil. Thank you for hosting this as usual. And I want to thank all the candidates who join us. We missed last month because of the election, the program last month, but we're great to restart again with this group of wonderful candidates. And we had a great run for a lot of positions here in Brevard County, and I want to thank everyone for joining us today and sharing their experience. As Phil says, we are looking for candidates who can join us on the board and also on a lot of committees that we have. So if you are interested, Space Coast Progressive Alliance has been very active in the community. We lead in a lot of areas, and we want to make a difference in Brevard County. And we would love to have some of your expertise join us. We have a wonderful team that works together and produce this kind of event. I want to also to highlight the Action Project Committee that we have, doing a great job. So if you would like to be part of this wonderful organization, please contact me. My phone number is 321-961-5234. And we look forward to hearing from everyone in this program tonight. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Ryan. You know what? Ryan's a great guy to work with. I can tell you personally, he's been a wonderful person. And if you do decide to run for our board or our officers, you will certainly enjoy getting to know guys like Ryan. We have a wonderful team. I also am curious to know if our treasurer, Carol Becker, is with us tonight. Is Carol out there? If she is not, Barbara Bingner has volunteered to back her up. If Carol's not here,
Carol
Barbara,
is here. Carol is here.
she is. Excellent.
Muted. She's muted.
Carol is our treasurer, and she usually likes to come on board and talk about membership and donations and that sort of thing. So if she's available to talk, we'd love to have Carol Becker, another one of our officers, to come on board and make the pitch. Carol, are you there?
You have to unmute her.
I know they're working on that. Well, thanks everybody. Hopefully, thank you for your patience as we work through this little bit of a technical difficulty. Carol, can you hear me? We do not hear you yet, Carol. If we can't get Carol, we can try Barbara Bingner. Barbara is our membership chair, and she has been keeping track of who's a member, who is not over the year. Those of you that haven't checked it out, I encourage you to go check out our newly upgraded website. It's www.scpaflorida.com. And I know that it's been upgraded, but I know they're still working on it a little bit. So if you click
Barbara
on
is live.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been unmuted now. Thanks.
Hey, Barbara, we got you. Barbara Bingner, our membership chair.
All right, I'll keep it brief. I think everybody knows that the SCPA's membership is now for 1 calendar year beginning in January. And if you have tried to join through our website, you might have noticed that there is a glitch. And we do have someone working on the join button right now. And we'll send out a message as soon as possible to let you know when that is fixed. In the meantime, if you would like to send a check, I have a P.O. box for you. It would be to SCPA P.O. Box 412, Melbourne, Florida, 32902-0412. And again, it is a P.O. box and it's 412. I look forward to hearing from you and thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. Phil, Carol is also available.
Fantastic, Carol. I don't know if you'd like to add anything to what Barbara just said.
No,
Carol?
just ditto what Barbara said. Nothing more to add.
Okay, well, thank you very much for serving us as our treasurer in 2020. We appreciate that very much. And I think it's worthwhile mentioning to everybody that our topic for the month of January will be, our meeting will be on January 7th. It's the first Thursday, as is our tradition. We will be doing the SCP officer board elections. And wow, it looks very Christmassy wherever you are, Carol. My gosh, looks like a great, are those your decorations? Looks good. Okay, she's off the line, but she looks great in the background. Anyway, so our next event will be January 7th, SCPA Officer Board elections. And we may have something else, a little treat to add to that. And I do want to take a moment to thank our Action Projects Committee. The APC is the Space Coast Progressive Alliance Committee that puts together our programs. And this evening, Larry Abdullah, Barbara Bingner, Bonnie Ida, Daniel McDowell worked together to bring you this wonderful program and our wonderful candidates. So thanks to all of those volunteers working with our Action Projects Committee. Something I would like to ask our panelists, and that is at the end of each of our meetings, we like to have an action item, something that our members and our guests can take home, something that they should do, something that you would recommend that folks here in Brevard County can do to make our community a better place. We're not going to tell you what to recommend, but I'm going to ask each of you to start thinking about what you would like our members and our guests to have as an action item so that they've got something that they can do, something to turn our discussion tonight into action. So think about what kind of an action item you might recommend. Well, I think it's about time for us tonight to proceed to our program. And you know what? If you'll bear with me for just 1 second, I think it's something that all of us should recognize, and that is how serious this pandemic has become. It's been a horrible year, and many people have already lost their lives. More than 250,000 people have lost their lives in our country alone. But we now have reached I'm not sure if they're calling it a peak within a peak. The results of people getting together at Thanksgiving, people that have just refused to wear masks, we're all paying the price for it. And I think it's something that we all should recognize, and that is how serious this is. So we're begging you, if you're listening to us, I suspect everybody that's here watching us probably are people that are going to be wearing masks, people that are going to be social distancing, people that are going to be washing their hands regularly. But we ask you to take this seriously. We ask you to please, especially as we get deeper into the holiday season, forego the opportunity to be with your friends, especially without wearing a mask, especially if you're put in a situation where you're close to other people. So please, let's take this horrible situation that we're in, take it seriously. Do what you can to protect your friends and your neighbors by wearing a mask, social distancing, staying at home, doing the things that you know you should do. Forgive me for throwing that in there, but I think it's worthwhile. There, by the way, if you haven't, there are also a couple of wonderful apps that you can use on your phone to help participate in studies that are being done right now. One that Lynn and I, my wife and I, participate in. It's called the COVID symptom study. There's an app on your phone. Just do a quick search for the COVID symptom study, and it's anonymously collecting data that researchers can use to help understand this horrible virus. Okay.
Phil, before you get started, I apologize if you've
Daniel?
mentioned this, that we're live streaming to Facebook, and that is not an interactive component. That the questions, if we do get questions on Facebook, DP will help us field those questions.
Thank you very much for mentioning that. Indeed, we're very, very lucky to be able to both have our Zoom event where participants can interact with us directly, as well as the Facebook Live functionality. And that really is wonderful because it frankly lets people all across the country, and even a few people outside of the United States, participate in our events. It's great to have everyone on board with us tonight. So running progressive in Brevard 2020, candid conversations with our candidates is our message for tonight. I know that we had one candidate who joined us that I didn't get to mention his name, Sanjay Patel, ran for County Commission District 3. Do we have anybody else other than Sanjay join us? Alrighty, so let's start alphabetically. We're going to start with Lloyd Dobbs. Lloyd, if you're ready. Lloyd
Phil.
ran for the
Phil,
Yes?
Paul Kellum is
Paul.
here.
Paul
Paul is
Kellum.
on board. Excellent. Already, I'm keeping notes of everybody here. Excellent. So Sanjay and Paul. Well, let's start with Lloyd. Lloyd for Florida State House District 52. Lloyd, you have 5 minutes to start the program, please.
Thank you. I don't think I'll spend 5 minutes, but I'll just talk about very quickly. Thank you to all the candidates who ran, especially the ones who really didn't have a shot, I think, at winning their races. It's important from a progressive standpoint to understand, why people run in the first place. And I did run knowing that we were in a requirement or an environment where it was very difficult to win. But we understood the politics at the time and why we were all coming out of the woodworks. We knew that 2020 was going to be a very important year, where if a lot of us didn't stand up, especially within District 52, we could get 4 more years of the same. Politics needing to be local, we knew we needed to run at the state level and be competitive at the state level. And ultimately, that's why I ran. What did I learn from this is don't run during COVID. Don't run in 2020. Don't run in Brevard County. No. We learned a lot of good things. People are very receptive and open when you can knock on their door and speak to them. when you're in an environment where you can't do that, it's obviously very much limits your ability to resonate, especially if you don't have name recognition within your community. That was one of our big problems that we had right off the bat. I'd say to candidates who are looking to run for office, speak your voice and your message, and don't let data points or anything else kind of dissuade you from that. You know, whether you're super progressive or moderate, I think people are receptive if you ultimately have a vision and a plan for your community. And, you know, from an action item standpoint, just pick your niche and what you want to work on and focus on that. You know, being that the elections just ended, we're seeing probably a severe, you know, depression of support. I know I did after my election happened. I dropped off the radar for a few weeks just to decompress, but we've got a lot of races coming up. We have to prepare for 2022. So it's very important that we, from a Democratic perspective, make sure that we're in the community, we're active, we're visible, and we can build the name recognition from the Democratic Party that lets people understand that we're not, you know, horned individuals looking to come bring socialism to Brevard County. And that's ultimately what I think we need to show the people of Brevard. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much for running, Lloyd. Thank you for your thoughts. I'm just kind of curious, did you have anything, like one particular story, did you have anything that jumped out at you during the course of your campaign? Something that was like, wow, you know, something that really surprised you?
Let's see. You know, I think what surprised me is people are genuinely nice when you get to speak to them one-on-one. On social media, it's very vitriolic. You know, people are throwing just the worst things at you right and left without really knowing you. But if you're to speak to that person by knocking on their door or speaking to them on the phone, that human component is very important. So I met a lot of people who at first were, you know, very aggressive, you know, understanding that you're a Democrat and maybe they have a Trump flag up front. But once they realize that you're a human and you've got a very specific background, they're taken off from that. And then that's how you build a message going forward. That's how you skew people towards the middle, or you skew people left. That's how you register new people. We have to win ultimately by registering more Democrats. And that's how you do it is door knocking, which we weren't able to do. I will say the one thing, if I could just say one more thing, we weren't able to really understand how conservative NPAs were in our community. I think from an analytic standpoint, we thought that they would swing a certain way. At the top level, maybe they did just a little bit, but you know, once it came to our races, that didn't happen. So as a Democratic Party, we have to realize that MPAs in our community are not really independent. There's a lot of very Republican individuals, and that I think it lends to us needing to recruit and turn more people to the Democratic Party over the next 2 years to ensure we get the vote in 2022.
And NPA stands for no party affiliation, right?
That's right.
So for those of you that are paying attention, we if we want to see more progressive policies put in place, somehow find a way to connect to those people who have not cemented themselves to one party or another. Very important lesson. Thank you, Lloyd. And Paul, Coach Kellum, he ran for the Canaveral Port Authority, and I'm sure, Paul, that you've got a story to tell. Are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Great to have you, Paul. Welcome aboard. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, glad to be here. Well, I thought I ran a good race. I ran, and the reason I got into the race is because it's something that I know. I've been in the maritime shipping industry for 18 years at Port Canaveral. So I was not out of my elements. I ran in my elements. I ran on things in the subject that I know. I still feel that I was a better candidate, and even though I lost, I had a chance to speak to a lot of Republicans who sided with me on some of the issues. I'm for lower taxes, more jobs at the port, and keeping our community and our ecosystem clean, and our environment clean. So my message was honed in. I was honed in on those three things, and I stuck with it because Port Canaveral is a lifeline to our county. And, bringing tourism back to our county and our port is of vital importance. And keeping our waterways and our ecosystem clean is definitely important, and making sure that the port spends our tax dollars wisely. And I want to make sure that we keep our taxes low for the residents of Brevard County. But I think more time, more money could have changed things. I feel I out debated my opponent when I had the opportunity to. And like I said, I'm not being arrogant, but I just feel I was a better candidate. But I think people don't really understand. And the question a lot of people ask me, well, what does the port do? So a lot of people didn't have the knowledge of the understanding of the port, but yet they were able to vote on the port issues without having the understanding. So I did a lot of explaining to a lot of people what the port functions are, what the port commissioner does. So they didn't realize how vital the port was to Brevard County in bringing those tourism dollars to our county. My takeaway is that I'm not going to quit. I'm going to give it another shot because I still feel that I can add to the Canaveral Port Authority with my experience, my expertise. This is something that I've been doing this for 18 years. And I don't think anybody on that board, and like I said, I'm not trying to be cocky or arrogant. I don't think anybody on that panel knows the port like I do. And I'll say that to anybody. And, it was a good experience. I learned some lessons from it. I learned about myself. I learned about people, that if you just sit down and have a conversation with a person and explain to them, no different than we all want the same things when it really comes down to it. We want clean water. We want good jobs for our community. We want businesses to thrive. We want to keep our taxes low. And that was the message. And I ran with that, and I will run with that same message again when I run again. So I want to thank everybody, and I thank everybody for their support.
Thank you, Paul. I'll tell you what, I personally watch your skill at interacting with folks on the left and the right and down the middle. You are a talented man with a fantastic message. I tell you what.
Thank you.
As you build more name recognition,
right,
there's no doubt that you've got a bright future in politics in Brevard County. And many people don't realize that we are one of the only places on the face of this earth that have both an airport or airports. We have a seaport, that is to say Port Canaveral. We have major land transportation issues, and we also have a spaceport. And there, I don't know of any place on the face of the earth that covers all four modes of transportation in one location. Brevard County is gifted with this, and it's something that you were able to exploit and talk about effectively. So good luck, Coach. We were with you, buddy. Thank you again for running. Our next speaker, Jim Kennedy for U.S. Congress, District 8. He can tell us a little bit about the space business. Jim, you have the floor.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Phil. Again, thank you, everyone, for having me, Progressive Alliance. Thank you to all the candidates. I mean, we've worked together for, the past year and a half. Some of us, it's been quite the slog. As we all know, except for Yvonne and Dan that are here tonight, I think it didn't work out the way we wanted, but such is life. We had an uphill battle that we knew we were going to fight. There were quite a few things learned, on this campaign, on this whole cycle. There's so much to it that you're not aware of ahead of time, that nobody tells you about. They don't pass down the knowledge. So what we've learned is we really need to help the next round. We really need to be helping each other instead of working against each other. There's so much that we can share, so much knowledge that like Joan and I and Nina would work together on these different things. It would come in, we'd find out about it a little bit late. So this time around, it was definitely a learning experience. As an engineer, as a scientist myself, I love learning anything. And I'm going to take away a lot of things from this because there's quite a bit to learn. As I said, as we were going through the campaign, the most important one was Joe. And thank God we got that one. We've got the top of the ticket, and now we can start to heal. We can start getting some of that hate. Hopefully, we need to work on that a bit at a time, getting that hate out of our neighborhoods, getting that hate out of our community that unfortunately Trump brought out to the forefront, and just, it was just gross. So we've got work to do. We have a lot of work to do. We can't just wait till 2022. We have to start talking to people now. We have to start talking to the people where they're at, not forcing them to come to us. We need to start reaching out and seeing why there was so much hate, why all these things were there. And we saw it. I mean, obviously, I don't see him on here, but Alton took huge amounts of hate, took the brunt of that. But, and I mean, God bless him for his efforts. But we need to start addressing that, and that's also within our own party. There's a lot of political infighting within the DNC all the way up. We saw this when we talked to people in Washington for our campaign. So it's going to take a lot of work, and people need to start now. So we'll see how this goes. I can't wait until January 20th. That's going to be a fun day. And I'm looking forward to it. There's a lot that can happen between now and then. We have to stand by for. I don't think we're going to get a rest for Christmas. So sorry to not be the super cheery one, but facts and figures, they don't lie. We knew what was going to happen, and we knew what the numbers said. So we've got our work ahead of us. So that's what I got, Phil.
Jim, as a talented aerospace engineer with a wonderful family, you brought a lot to the table. And we really appreciate your putting that out there. I know that for everybody here, each of our candidates, not only your time and effort, but a lot of personal money was put in each of these races. This is a real sacrifice. It is a sacrifice that I think the average person doesn't realize how personal this is. It is something that you give time that you could have been spending with your kids. There are, a lot, and again, focused in the envelope of this pandemic, if you do go and knock on doors, you're literally putting your life at risk. I mean, the exposure to a deadly virus is no laughing matter. This is serious. And something, if I might, something you mentioned that's really, really important, and that is that the two races for Senate in Georgia should be at the front of our minds. All of us, no matter what state you live in, can help those candidates. Hopefully, if we have a strong conservative grip on the Senate and Mitch McConnell remains in the power position he's in, the next 4 years are going to be tough. You were saying, I'm sorry.
No, it was all right. It's all right. I know. I just said you see these. You mentioned about some of the funny stories, and you said some of it's scary. I did. Joanne, campaign manager, and we were down in Indian River, and we went to this one. We were campaigning and all over the place. And I think of when I think of Indian River, I picture Vero, I picture Sebastian, I picture these really pretty communities. There's some very, very rural once you get out there, and there was a few places Joanne refused to get out of the car. She was terrified. I got out, and I was a little bit nervous for myself. But we still met a lot of really nice people, just kind-hearted souls, and, these very down-to-earth people. And it was nice I wouldn't normally have walked up and knocked on that door. I'll be honest. I don't think any of us here would. But met some very nice people, some very kind souls that are out there that we need to not forget about. I mean, obviously, that doesn't just apply to Indian River. That does apply to, whatever our district is as we're running. So Nina knows, she's up in the wedge field with me and all that, very Bithlow, very rural areas. So it was quite an adventure. It's quite an adventure.
It's a very, very good way to look at it. Thank you, Jim. Our next speaker, Joan Majid. She ran for State House, District 51. Joan, would you like to tell us your story? Tell us your perspective.
Thanks, Phil, for having me.
Welcome.
Do you hear me?
Yes, we've got you.
Well, I ran because I just, from year to year, get more and more heartbroken when I see the lack of progress in just helping our typical little guy and gal in Brevard County, struggling, working for low wages, not having health care, and it just gets worse and worse. And what really made me make the decision was I was fed up last fall when I passed the homeless community in the woods in my area again. And I'm like, this is great. This is just sickening. They don't care. Nobody's doing anything up there. And, the whole combination. And so that's what made me do it. It was what was inside my heart. And I've often throughout time, I always say, I could probably do a better job than so-and-so who's up there. Or any of my friends could probably do it because I tend to hang with people who have the same values. So I did it. And it was a heck of a learning experience. I've learned Brevard County is more divided than I realized. And I also learned that you have got to meet people, as Jim was saying, where they are. Nobody wants to hear about my philosophy on how to make the schools better. They don't really care about it. They wanted me to listen to them. And I also learned that I consider myself a progressive person, but I realize that I have to be very conscious of the language I use when I'm expressing my opinion and my views on issues. And this has been a heck of an experience. And I'm going to tell you the worst phrase of the entire, my experience was the defund the police. I had people sending me messages about it, horrible messages about it, and also socialism. And I was getting hate messages on my Facebook saying that I was a rabid socialist. And I realized that we're failing. We're failing in our messaging because most of us here, we may have some moderate values in certain areas and progressive in others. We're a mishmash. And but we need to learn how to be on the same page in our message. And we need to talk about the issues, not about, I was accused of being a Bernie Sanders person. I was, like socialist, this, that. Somebody said I was an anarchist. Me? I don't know. My goal is to work on messaging, whether I run again or not. I think that we need to come together and talk about how do we just find common ground and build bridges. We need to look at people as individuals, not as part of a group. And I did find that when I had the opportunity to speak to people on the other side, and I would ask them, okay, forget who I am, forget that I'm running, but just tell me something. What's your biggest 3 worries? We need to do that. And we need to tell them I have the same concern. Let's talk about it. How do you think we can solve it together? And we're never going to 100% agree, and we have to agree on that. But we have to work towards building a bridge and working with the other side and compromising. And from the top down in our country now, they're not doing it in any of our legislatures. So that's my goal. I'm not leaving. I don't know if I'm running again. I might. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to be doing what I was doing, but more intensely. And I think that every candidate has a real gift now. We've been through this. We know exactly what it's like. And we've met a lot of people. We've also learned about issues more so. One of the processes that taught me really well was, and I'd suggest this for any candidate, try to get endorsed by some organizations that you really support, because the process of getting an endorsement taught me. And I did receive a lot of endorsements, but they give you these amazing questionnaires that I complained about while I was going through it. But now that I look back, it was so wonderful because I had to answer essay questions basically and learn so much. I took that with me. And I realized if I'm going to be a legislator, I have to know this stuff anyway. So that was a good learning experience. Money's a major issue. We don't have what they've got. I don't know how to solve that problem, but anybody who runs, be prepared, because nobody's going to hand you thousands of dollars. And it does take money to compete with people who have those thousands. So I thank all of you for this opportunity, and I'm not disappearing. I will be out there. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Joan. Thanks to you and Wally. I know work together as quite a team. You guys, bring the most sincere face to issues. The idea of saying, set aside, my title and what I'm running for. Just talk. Let's talk face to face. That's hard to do, and it's really, really a gift to be able to do that. It's wonderful that you shared that with us. Thank you for that. Our next candidate, Daniel McDowell of West Melbourne City Council, was successful. Daniel is on our board, and he is one of the most energetic.
I'm tired.
Electrifying guys I have ever met. I tell you what, Daniel, please tell us your story. Why did you run, and tell us some lessons that you learned?
Phil, if I may, though, just take a few seconds here and make sure that put it in full disclosure that as a board member of the Progressive Alliance, we are a nonpartisan organization. And we welcome and encourage to have Republican non-party affiliates and Democrats and Green Party and anybody else for that matter to join us tonight. And we, so I just want to make sure we get that out there that the Progressive Alliance is a non-partisan organization. With that said, I ran a nonpartisan race, and thanks, Joan. You just definitely triggered in my brain of how nonpartisan it was. It was definitely an experience that I did not expect. I got engaged, involved because I was wanting to get involved in politics, and no better place to do it, as Phil has said many a times, is all politics are local. And so how better to, serve my community than to try to do it in my own area. I had no idea that, I guess I should say that I knew the demographics of the typical, which is pretty much looks like the rest of Brevard, 30, 30, 40, pretty much in the breakdown. But boy, they come out and vote here in the number one precinct, 309, which is the highest registered precinct of any precincts in Brevard. So here in my backyard, it goes from 40 to 65% in favor. So we were definitely, whether we would like it or not, people do, whether we say it's nonpartisan, they do ask that question. And if they don't ask directly, are you a D or an R or an I or whatever, they ask you, well, who are you supporting at the top of the ticket? And that usually is telling as far as where they're trying to get to. So that was an aha moment. I got involved also because my grandson is autistic, and special needs is important. And we have a huge park here called Field of Dreams, which is for special need children. And I wanted to really represent that, as well as I was very engaged, involved before I came to Florida in sustainability. And I saw that as a lacking element here in this city. And so I do want to introduce that. That's part of my platform. Other things that were part of the platform that during the process I learned was the police. I was very big pro-police, supporting the police, and found that that turned out to be interesting because of the whole circumstances that were going on nationally. And it wasn't, and I stayed with that platform and continue to stay with that platform. And I proudly have my support the police sign. So that was a little bit of a challenge. So environmental infrastructure, looking at that. So some of the basic stuff, things that were core values to all the citizens. Did they yell at me at the doors? Oh yeah, yep, they did. And I don't know why. I mean, I'm a nice person for the most part, but there were people that had difficulty with some of basically when we started having a little bit of dialogue. And I learned that, and I learned to listen and politely walk away from it if possible. I give a lot of credit to the team that helped me. Because of the analytics, which is really critical. And we were able to tap into other databases other than just the traditional databases. And that helped understand my dynamics and the demographics a lot better. We used all the resources that we possibly could. I went to training that was helpful in the early, and I knew my win number, which my win number was really, it was too low because I had no idea this many people were going to come out and vote. So fortunately, my win number was was fortunately we had a lot more people come out, which helped, but I still got in as the third candidate. And
Daniel, could you define win number for those of us that may not know that terminology?
the win number, I had election night. The win number is more than the other guy. Actually, there's all these people. I'll get critiqued on this. So all I know is you come up and you calculate. There's a calculation you can do as far as based on the history of what people have voted. And then it's win plus one. And in my case, I'll just tell you what in West Melbourne, we were hoping for 5,001 because historically that's what would get you in the door. We came in at 6,200, which was 1,200 higher, and I still came in third place, which is still a win because it was the top 3 seats that we were going after. So I probably did a disservice on the win number, and somebody else may want to touch on that. I do want to give credit though to somebody who is on the Zoom with us tonight, and that's Josh Humphreys. He was extremely critical. He was the guy behind the scenes who was nudging me and pushing me, and he came with a wealth of knowledge. And he's on mute, and he can't take himself off mute. So there you go, Josh. Too bad. So anyway, kudos to you. And I do want to say that, a secret weapon that we had and something that was unique, that was really helpful was, you know how you kind of push out that voice message where it goes right to the voice messaging. We did that at the end, and we used my daughter, and it was great. She's like, my dad, I love my dad. And we got a lot of positive feedback for that. So she was our little secret weapon there towards the end. And we're very pleased. Very happy. We did not ever hide the fact that I'm LGBTQ, and most of you may be aware of, we were featured in Florida today, actually in the hard copy in the paper today, had a full article in the opinion page about being the, I don't know, this is kind of a gray area, first known openly gay elected official in city council. So we're really happy about that. And that will be part of my platform going forward, as I'm very big on the human rights ordinance. And Bonnie, are you whispering to me it's time?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you, Daniel. And thank you for helping make tonight possible, for helping put this together. That's very, very important. Our next speaker, Yvonne Minus, she ran for the Melbourne City Council. And Yvonne, you are a fixture in our community. You are one of the most experienced leaders over a long period of time here in Brevard County. And I'll bet you have some serious lessons that you can offer to the other candidates and to the rest of the audience. It's wonderful to see you. And I want to say welcome. And ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Phil. I really appreciate it. Oh, I feel like I'm the oldest one in the bunch, as far as the seniority in politics here, huh? Okay, but I want to say good evening to everyone, and to President Ray, to the officers and members, and again to you, Phil. I appreciate you all very much. And to Miss Barbara for reaching out, inviting me here this evening. I love Space Coast, and I have other events on first Thursdays, but thank God I'm here, to be here. Okay, I ran on being involved in Melbourne. I love Melbourne. Okay, it's a poor frog don't praise its own pond, right? And I love working for Melbourne. I love working for anyone in Melbourne. Our races are nonpartisan, and just like McDowd was saying, they're asking you for your party affiliation, and then the other curve to that is, are you pro-choice or not? And it's like, well, if your road needs fixing, then I don't think you would ask me, am I a Democrat or a Republican? I say, ma'am or sir, our race is nonpartisan. And if they insist, then I don't have any problem in telling them who I am. Okay. I had a very good campaign. I want to thank my campaign manager, / grandson, Jordan Chandler, who to me walks on water. And also to my husband, James. They were by my side the whole time. If I couldn't count on anyone else, yes, if I couldn't count on anyone else, and a lot of times I couldn't, I definitely had them for the signs, for anything I need, including keeping me focused. And I really appreciate them. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we were going door to door trying to go with our mask and stuff. And yes, we did get blessed out or get away from my door, or you better leave, or what, I felt threatened a lot of times. To the point of I had to go practice at Frog Bones. But it was very scary a lot of times, even getting calls accusing me of incidents that happened in Brevard County that I had no knowledge of or didn't even know that they were marching or whatever. But being an elected official, I was blamed for that. And so, it goes with the territory. I didn't have a problem with it. I want to commend anyone who finds it in their heart that they want to run to make their city better. That is your right, and I commend you for doing that. However, if you do not win for whatever reason, please stay engaged. Don't disappear because you lost. I commend Mr. Callum for saying, hey, he's not going anywhere. He's going to be here. That is very important, to stay engaged. Please don't go anywhere. We need you. The name recognition is very important. Okay, just because you lost, I don't want to see you again another 4 years. We need to see you consistently the whole time. Please come to the events. Please come to Space Coast Progressive Alliance meetings or NAACP meetings or city council or whatever the events are. Please stay engaged. Again, Phil, I want to thank you and the Space Coast Progressive Alliance for allowing me to be here in this forum with other great individuals. Whether you won or lost, you are still great in my sight and in God's sight, and I appreciate that. And if there's anything I can do, I know you meet at Front Street, which is in my district. Okay, I appreciate it. Please don't hesitate to let me know. I want to thank everyone, and God bless America. And don't forget, it's Merry Christmas. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you so much. Merry Christmas to you, Yvonne, and to James and Jordan. Jordan Chandler, what an exciting young man. I know many folks who regularly come to SCPA events will recognize Jordan as a speaker, as a youth activist in our community.
Yes.
And boy, you should be proud of him, because I think we're all pretty proud of him. Again, thank you for sharing your experience and your wisdom. And not to say anything about age, we do have a question that has to be answered, I think. And that is, you've selected the Golden Gate Bridge as your background. What is it about the Golden Gate Bridge that you picked? It's sticking up out of the fog and it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's the first virtual background I can get to. But I do love the Golden Gate Bridge. I just love California, so I really appreciate it. So and like I said, hey, that was the first virtual background. I do have others, but that's my favorite.
I thought you were going to say, I've watched you work up on that city council, and you're an expert at building bridges, to the other members, and the key is to build alliances and friendships, and some of those with people that you might not think that you'd be allied with. Sometimes have very similar ideas, and to build a consensus. So building bridges is very important, even if
Absolutely.
it is the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yes, absolutely. And that was part of my re-election speech, was to extend the olive branch to work together. We all have our different preferences and different ideas and all, but we're all for the same common goal. And so, you have to give some to take some. You have to take some to give some, and I appreciate it. We have a great council, and we're ready to go to work. We have
Good.
some exciting programs to come. One very in particular off of Sorno Road. So you probably read about it, but you'll hear about it more.
Oh boy, new roads to help our community grow. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Our next
Yeah,
speaker,
thank you.
you're welcome, Phil Moore for State House 53. Phil is an energetic and electrifying young man who, I tell you what, I have really enjoyed watching you talk. I've enjoyed watching you interact with voters and with the community for years. Plus, I have to say your first name is magnificent. Anyway, Phil Moore, you have the floor.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. It's great to be here with the Space Coast Progressive Alliance. And thanks for giving us this opportunity to tell everybody their stories on how their elections went. And I'll share mine, hopefully briefly. As you all know, mine was a very contentious race. There was a lot of vitriol in my race, and there was a lot of nastiness. And I'll go through some of that. But why I decided to run was one of the questions you wanted us to answer. And as many of you are aware, I ran in 2018. My reason for wanting to run then was I wanted to see more representation from the Democratic Party at the state level. So I wanted to see more parity. I wanted to see more representatives, more senators. I wanted us to have a better voice in Tallahassee. And so that's why I decided to run for state. And state politics really interested me because they create laws and they set the standards in the state of Florida. In running in 2018, that was a very contentious race as well. And the story that I can share there is when I ran in 2018, my opponent then said that he would destroy me so bad that I would have to leave the county. He would threaten me that I would have to leave the county. And that kind of put the fire in me already to say, you know what, I'm not going to let a person like this bully somebody and intimidate somebody to say that they're not going to do what they feel passionate about doing. And that's the MO of my opponent, the person who won the race. So I thought about running in 2020. It wasn't something that I was jumping right into doing again. And I know everybody who is talking about it right now, it's not in their forefront in their mind, but give yourselves a few months and then see how things are going, see where your life is at again. And that's what I had to do too, is I had to see where my life reorganized itself at. And the opportunity was there. And I thought having the name recognition would really carry and give us a better chance in a area, in a portion of Brevard County that was considered or is considered more flippable. So I said, being a second time candidate, name recognition will be there. And the stars could align some. Let me go ahead and run again. Plus, I'm not going to let this person bully and intimidate me and not allowing me to do what I felt like we should be done in Brevard County. Well, we had the 2020 election, and it was even more contentious than before. So what did I learn this time? I learned that Florida and Brevard County is more red than we thought. And I think that was a harsh reality we needed to come to terms with, being Democrats. We lost races throughout the state of Florida at the state level that we thought we were going to win. And I think we spoke a lot amongst our own circles. And, we have that habit. And then you feed into this, oh, we got a chance, we're going to win. Things are looking good. How you feeling? Things are going great. We get into that circular talk. And I think that hit us hard for Democrats at the state, especially at the state level. But we saw that here at the county as well. It was a more red county than we thought. For me, the numbers in 2020 actually were worse than 2018. And we were hoping, being a presidential year, that we would have a better turnout and a better opportunity to flip this seat. But what we saw was the exact opposite. Although we did see a higher turnout of voters, but what we saw was a lot more vitriol. And what was already explained by a lot of the other candidates was there was a lot more stuff happening in their campaigns. Negative stuff was happening. And I can share my own experience too. I saw a lot more hateful people come out of the woodworks and confront me this race than I did in 2018. In fact, I had one person, while I was going to get my mail at my P.O. box, park his car behind mine and block me in, wait till I got out of his truck, and then threatened me and said, "You criminal, you shouldn't be running for office." And this was a reflection of my opponent spreading these lies and allegations and false rumors about me throughout the entire campaign. And what I learned is that Republicans will say, lie, cheat, and steal, and do anything they can in order to win a race. That is more important to them than anything. So much so that we saw they took a totally different strategy with COVID too. They didn't stop engaging. They didn't stop fundraising. They didn't stop hosting events. They didn't stop canvassing. In fact, the opposite. A lot of them were COVID deniers and still are, and think that, oh, it's not a real thing, and that it's something that the Democrats stirred up. And then the opposite, they're just like, oh, well, we're not going to worry about it. The elections are more important. And that's what they would say. The elections are more important. Winning that election is more important. And so we saw that a strategy for the Democratic Party was much more conservative, to use that word, but for COVID, and the Republicans didn't. And I think that actually was something that was just out of our control. We took COVID in a different manner, and that hurt us as one thing. But the lies were another thing, and they just kind of took that to the next level. And as was mentioned before, the fact that they were just throwing things out like socialism, defunding the police, the fact that this was a state level organized effort. This wasn't something that was coming from my opponent or Jones' opponent. This was a statewide effort. We were seeing this, and candidates were getting this message hit to them on the West Coast, hit to us over here down in South Florida, Socialista. All of that was being spread by the Republican Party as a whole. And that was their organized effort. And to speak of messaging, that's one of the things that we should have been able to counter as a whole. That shouldn't have been up to each one of us as individuals to have to sit there and go after, because for legislative level races, it really is what's happening locally. So here it's the Indian River Lagoon, the environment, unemployment was a big issue. What I will say we messed up on is we didn't take hold of those progressive issues. Like, they were going ahead and taking hold of the issues against us. But how hard would it have been? Now, I spoke on this, but it didn't carry very far. But what passed overwhelmingly in the state of Florida was the minimum wage. Passed overwhelmingly. That was something that I've been speaking on since 2018, was that I wanted to see a livable wage be brought to the state level as legislation should be doing. But that didn't happen. But you saw overwhelmingly that carried bipartisan support. So that should have been something that as a universal message should have been brought on by the state level. I think that's one of the places that we missed the marker there that we could have carried, and that could have helped us out. But again, we were just fighting a lot of money. And in the state of Florida, we're fighting a 20-year plus machine, a machine that's been built up, and they just have money to no end. But again, they'll lie, cheat, and steal, like I said before. And we saw that down in South Florida, where they ran NPA voter, nonpartisan or third-party candidates in races where they know that they had a chance of flipping that seat. And that happened in one of our state seats. A state senator lost the race because the Republicans, and it's well known now and documented that this was the Republican strategy, they're actually bragging about it now, is that their strategy was to run a candidate to steal votes away with the same last name as the Democratic senator. So the same Rodriguez last name, and that stole votes because the voters didn't know who they were voting for. And not only that, they actually put out a mailer that looked exactly like the Democratic mailer, just changed the names on it, the names in the face. And those people had $500,000 spent on their races, and they were just the name on the ticket. So again, there's a lot of money that they have that they throw into these races that we're just up against. I'm so happy. One of the strategies that we did, like I said, in 2018 that I took, was we needed to run people to have parity in Tallahassee, but we definitely need to continue to see people run in races where they might not have a good chance of winning, because we need to make sure that voters have an option, and we need to make sure that we hold people accountable to those actions when they're not happy. And so the only way to do that is through an election and to make sure that they have somebody else to vote for. So I think it's truly important. And I give a lot of the credit to those people who run in races where they really, the numbers don't look in their favor, but they know that they're doing the work that for the minority, the people who haven't been spoken for. So I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you. The last thing I want to say is there was an action item. We have a lot of people that we've elected to office, but what we cannot do is we cannot only go to those people when we have problems, when we have something. Now we have a friend in office and say, well, I'm just going to go. No, go to everybody, go to the entire council, go to the entire committee, because you need to express to them your displeasure too. Make them work hard for their office, their seat that they're holding as well. Don't just put all the onus on the person we just elected and say, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this. Everybody should be doing the work that they've been elected to do. So that's my call to action.
Thanks,
Phil.
Phil. Hey, Phil, I'm going to interrupt just for a second. So,
Sure.
for a housekeeping item here, we do have Kay Mirage that joined us just now, and Adam may be joining us as well. But I think in fairness, Sanjay would be next in the sequence.
I'm with
Sorry to interrupt you there, Phil Moore.
Oh, that's wonderful. And in fact, while we're taking this short break, I would like to remind everyone that in just a few minutes, when all of our speakers are completed, we'll be opening the floor to those of you that are here on the Zoom meeting. And you can raise your hand, and please remind me about this, raising your hand through the
Participant.
You look at the bottom of the screen, and take your little cursor and put it down there. If you click on the participant button, it gives you the option of raising your hand. I highly recommend that you take a quick look at that before you decide that you want to ask a question. And when we recognize that you're raising your hand, we will be recognized, you'll be taken off of mute. You can ask your question, interact with this wonderful panel that we have tonight. So our next speaker, Sanjay Patel for County Commission District 3. Sanjay, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We've got you 5 by 5. You sound great and you look great. How you doing, buddy?
Very good, thank you.
Please tell us about your experience and any lessons that you've learned, things you'd like to pass on, any unusual things that happened during your campaign. You have the floor.
First off, thank you so much, Phil, Riot, and the rest of the Space Coast Alliance, Progressive Alliance board. And thank you to my fellow candidates. One of the luxuries of going towards the end is that you've already kind of captured all of the important things that I wanted to say, but I'll throw in some lessons learned. I don't know if Paul is still on, but I can attest that not only was he the superior candidate, every one of my fellow candidates on this call right now was the superior candidate. Unfortunately, what we saw was, especially in those races that were partisan, that ultimately the voters here in Brevard voted for the letter that was next to their name. But I will say something that happened here is, we shifted Democrat, meaning in 2016, we did 4 percentage points better in 2020 as opposed to 2016. So we, narrowed that margin quite a bit. And that ended up being the second best in the state. So as a whole, even though we didn't win these partisan seats, we took a ton of nonpartisan seats and the entire electorate voted, we became more blue. And that's the lesson that I've learned. I've been a candidate twice now. I ran in 2018 for Congress and now for commission in 2020. We're moving that needle. But we have to just recognize that the Republicans have been doing this for, decades. And so it's going to take us time. As much as I wish it would happen in a 2-year cycle or a 4-year cycle, it's going to take us there. But if we keep pushing at it, we are going to keep pushing that needle to the left and we'll get there. Something I want to acknowledge that a lot of folks have already touched on is it's hard to get Democrats to run here. I mean, this is a really tough environment when you're in a red county like this. In my particular race this cycle, a PAC that was supporting my opponent sent off a mailer to tens of thousands in the district that had my home address on it. And you can imagine in this kind of environment how challenging that might be. My opponent took tens of thousands of developer donations the same day that we'd be voting on whether or not to approve the project that came before the commission. So, I believe I was the better candidate, but, ultimately it comes down to, in this particular cycle, it did come down to, he had an R next to his name. And something that, I love you, Joan, but I disagree with you is, I was labeled the Bernie Sanders progressive candidate while my opponent was the Barry Goldwater conservative. If anyone watched that debate, it was like oil and water. We are very different on the issues. But, I came off, this race with 44% plus change. So I did relatively well, and the issues I was fighting about were, what we're seeing now. We're seeing a fish kill in our lagoon. We need to make sure we take care of that body of water. We're dealing with a COVID crisis. I can't tell you how many families are still struggling to how they're going to put food on the table, how they're going to pay for their rent. So when we talk about these issues, I think that we've got to lean into them and really push for what's right. They're going to call us a socialist, right? They're going to say that, you're an anarchist, but we have to focus on the issues and what will actually help our constituents, our environment. These are the important things that we have to do. And Phil touched on this. We have to recognize that the minimum wage, that got 55% here in Brevard. And when we talk about that half-cent sales tax, I think that was closer to like 68%. So if you talk about the issues, I think we can get a lot more folks, to rally with us. And, something that I would love to see happen here locally is our constitutional offices should be nonpartisan. Our sheriff, it shouldn't matter what party he's at, right? If you live in this district, you should feel safe, whatever party you decide to support. So that's something I would love to see. Paul touched on this as well. We need voter education. I can't tell you how many doors I knocked on where, someone would say, I don't know what a county commissioner does. And so I would explain that to him. And Paul mentioned, the same with Port Canaveral. So we have some work to do. In this particular cycle for me, I did jump into the race late. I ended up joining right at the week of qualifying. We thought we had a candidate lined up for it, and unfortunately, due to family reasons, couldn't do it. And so we were not going to let that seat go unchallenged. And that's something really important to keep note of. In the past cycles, so 2018 and 2020, we had full slates, right? We had great candidates running for state house. We had state senate, Congress, and that's how we're moving the needle. We got to talk about these issues. And by having candidates in each of those slots, that's how we're able to do that. Something that my worry is that we know that Trump is going to be out. So complacency becomes an issue, right? Well, he's out, so we've got Biden there, everything's gonna be fine. We can't let up. We have to continue pushing because what's gonna happen is if we don't get folks the help, the support that they need now, this can all revert back in 2024. And what I'd love to see is progressive groups like the Space Coast Progressive Alliance. We all have to come together, right? So we've got environmental groups that are pushing for specific policies around the environment. We've got the NAACP, we've got the ACLU, we've got Sierra Club. So all of these groups, my challenge to you is go to a DEC meeting, go to another one of these meetings and see how we can kind of combine and consolidate our efforts, right? We can make a lot more progress if we're all working together on a common goal. So that's what I'd love to see. I did get elected as the state committee man last night for the Brevard Democrats. So I intend to keep pushing. And I especially am going to push statewide, right? If every county did what we were able to do here in Brevard with that, 4-point swing, Florida would have gone to the Democrats, to Joe Biden, right? And so we need substantial reforms at the state level. And I think that, I'll be definitely vocal about what we can do there. But again, super honored to run alongside these great candidates. I'm so proud of the folks who were able to get in. I mean, it's just, it's amazing what we've been able to see over the past couple of years. And, we're just going to keep doing that work. And it's an honor to stand alongside all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sanjay. I think the analysis, the big picture analysis is so important. And the idea of having an issues-oriented campaign. One of the things that I believe, if I know I've read this, I know I've heard it, and that is that if you can de-identify an issue from a party, in other words, potholes or a clean Indian River lagoon, those progressive issues, bread and butter issues, minimum wage, these are very, very popular with voters on all sides. And if we focus on the issues more than the personalities, which of course one of the great challenges you have is when you've got such an ominous person at the top coming from the White House, these messages of hate, these messages of, frankly, they're evil messages of hate. They permeate our electorate, they permeate our society, and that just boils back. It's like having boiling oil thrown in your face, when in fact you're really there telling somebody about how to improve the quality of their local environment, and they want to talk about, crazy tinfoil QAnon stuff. It's really, really, really hard to control a message about an issue when you've got that kind of stuff boiling around us, and that's a challenge for us in the future.
Great. We need to do a time check, Phil. We've got 2 more speakers and.
Righto, Adam Tritt is our next.
No, I'm sorry. It would be Nina I missed Nina. My apologies, Phil.
Oh, Nina, very good. Well, Nina Yoakum ran for Florida State House District 50. Nina, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. It's so good to see all of you. Do I mean it? Yes, I do. What got me to run was meeting with Rene Placencia so many times to try to get him to change some gun legislation, because he is owned by the NRA. And it was after Parkland, and it was a bunch of parents over here where I live in Avalon Park. And then after we'd meet with them, he'd go back and vote for something like, let's arm the teachers. That sounds like a great idea. And let's put, guns on college campuses and, conceal and carry. What a great idea. And I thought, this guy isn't going to do a thing for us. So I decided somebody's got to run against him. And I was the only likely one out of our big group because of where my kids were in life, where my husband was in life, so on and so forth. So I decided I'm going to do it. I'm going to try my best to win this race against this guy, because he has got to go. Also, he had an F from the environment. And he didn't vote a lot on women's issues. He would just sit out that week. And that to me is just chicken shit. And so I just thought, this guy's terrible. And so I went to run against him. And I had my family's backing, which did not mean they were going to get involved. It just meant I had their backing, and I was okay with that. And I learned a lot along the way, some of which is life is what happens while you're busy making other plans. Besides COVID virus creeping in and going, none of this is going to go the way you thought it was going to go. My mother died the day I was announcing I was going to run. I'm not saying this for sympathy. I'm saying it for, you don't plan what's going to happen. God does, or a higher being, or whatever. My uncle died, who was my favorite uncle. And I'm not just saying that. He really was my favorite uncle. And my brother died, who was 2 years older than I was. There were 5 kids. So he was closest to me. We played the most and all that. So, it was like boom, boom, boom. And then how do you get out there? And, not only are you going to get COVID, my son, the lawyer, kept saying, Mom, you're going to get sued if you give somebody COVID. So, he was threatening me from that end. Like he wasn't saying it in a mean way, but he was saying it in a, you cannot give somebody COVID. So, was a threat too, if I had to be very careful with that. And then also something interesting about, if you run for District 50, you have Brevard, which is red as red can be. And then you have to behave like a little bit differently over there. And then you got Orange County, which is progressive as all get up and go. So you kind of have to change your body language a little bit and see where you're at and what you're doing. I felt like driving a Chevy pickup truck over to Brevard and campaign over there, and then drive back over in one of those cars like Pam Dershka has and drive over here, and campaign over here, because it's night and day. Even my opponent drove over here in Orange County, my opponent, who I cannot stand, by the way, but he drove over here and he would carry signs that said Placencia for District 50, and then he had a Biden sign on top of it in Orange County. And I'm sure he didn't carry that same sign over there in Brevard as he drove his pickup truck over there. So, he sent out mail that looked just like my mail. His mail looked like it was Democratic mail. And that was for over here in Orange County. And I always say, what are you, a Democrat or a Republican or what? Make up your mind. But anyway, he was much like Phil Moore's opponent. He threw so much mud at me that, and he was like, well, let's see what sticks. And right now, when I walk around Orange County, I don't know what people think of me. I don't know what they believe about me. And I don't like that one bit. But Dan had a really good saying the other day. I don't remember what it was, but it was something like, the more you protest, the more it looks like you're guilty, or something like that. And he can say it. But so I've just kind of been not responding to it, but he really, really threw me in the gutter, and I don't like him for saying it. And I'm still kind of in shock. So I haven't responded to him. And I also haven't told him congratulations, because he could have won without saying horrible things about me. He still would have won that election. And he didn't have to do that. And now I just feel like it doesn't make me want to run back out there and run back in the election like Phil, because he kind of didn't say the same kind of things. And he took my family into it, and he drug my family down. So those are things that, if you want to run, you can expect too. And I didn't go there with them because everybody said the thing Michelle Obama said, take the high road. And it's like, that's getting old. I felt like taking the low road, but I didn't, but I felt like it. But I want to say something. I don't know if this is the time to do it, but I want to say that I want to offer people too, because the place that we live in right now is so messed up with COVID and everything. I really want to offer people to do a random act of kindness for people, for one person, maybe tomorrow. But your thing is, and this is the hardest thing about doing a random act of kindness, is do not tell one soul you did that random act of kindness. Nobody. Don't tell your wife. Don't tell your best friend. Don't tell anybody you did it. Just do a random act of kindness. You can't tell Stacy Patel you did it, Sanjay. You just do it for somebody and remain completely anonymous. And I mean, don't tell anybody. The only one that's going to know about it is your higher power, whoever that may be in your life. And that's it. And I think that is a good thing for us to be doing right now, to get the world back on a better footing than we're in right now.
Well, Nina, that is a beautiful action item. I'll tell you what, we should all take that one home, and that's something to live by, is being kind to other people. Sometimes when they're not kind to us, it is good for your soul, isn't it? It's a beautiful message, and our sincere condolences on the loss. Running for office is a very, very personal thing. Even though you're out in public and it's all seems to be, it's a very personal thing. And sometimes it's a knife fight, and sometimes there are cuts that you take that the public won't even see. It is really rough. It can be very, very much a rough sport, isn't it? Nina, thank you so much. Thank you for running. Thank you for coming and talking with us tonight. Let's see. Daniel.
Right. If we could go with Kay, and then Adam has joined us, but we'll do Kay first, and then I'm going to give Adam ability to take himself off. And when you call.
All righty. Well, Kay Barrage for Palm Bay Mayor. Kay, are you with us? Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Would you like to tell us a story about your experience? Tell us the lessons that you learned. Something that you might advise other people that are considering running for office. Please, welcome, and you have the floor.
Well, thank you. And, we're lucky in Brevard to have so many amazing candidates who stepped up to the plate, even when they weren't sure they were going to run, but still stepped up and did perform. Of course, the city of Palm Bay is one of those interesting cities. I am very, very happy for the persons who we actually got on council. So of course, you may know that Randy Foster and Donnie Felix were elected to the council. And right now they're actually at a council meeting and, trying to make a difference here in the city. So, it was my first time running, and it was interesting because of course, COVID-19 came in. And so we had to quickly pivot to figure out, how do I get my name out there? Of course, I was being brand new, just kind of in my own little circle. Not many people in the county, in the city, anywhere really knew who I was. So the challenge for me was, how do you get your name out there when we're on a lockdown? And that was when we started our virtual town halls and doing everything we could using social media to get the name out. So I would say to anyone who's looking to run, you're going to have to make sure going forward, I think social media is going to be how you're going to play this game. How do you get in front of a lot of people in a short period of time is mastering social media. I wish we had more time to do that. And I think that was also a thing for our campaign as well, trying to make sure that we were able to do a lot online. So we focused a lot there. I have to say, of course, with the DC to help us, help me in particular, just kind of navigate, what happens next? What's the course of action? What do you do in the start? What you do now? The messaging. That was, I would say, for me, one of the bigger challenges in terms of getting the message right. What do people want to hear and how they want to hear it? I don't think I mastered that. So if another recommendation for someone is the message. When you do have very loud, Republicans, and, unfortunately my race, the mayor's race, was supposed to be a nonpartisan race, but it became partisan really, really fast. So it was lined up, Democrat, Republican. What my opponent did, because I guess back in the day, he was a Democrat. So he still, a lot of people thought he was a Democrat. So they were working with that, although he worked for Posey, although he had all the, he was a Trump supporter. A lot of Democrats were confused with that. And also, was in the church as well. So a big chunk of our base that we would normally go to, if it weren't COVID, to go out to meet to the persons in the church. Because, Palm Bay has a lot of churches and a lot of groups here. We weren't able to do that. So I think that also was a challenge in our campaign. But I would say it's very important, if someone's looking to run, start early, learning and meeting the groups, getting into the groups. And I think overall the party itself should start, if someone is interested, start formalizing, who the groups are, where the main contacts are, so that a new candidate is able to say, this is the contact person you need to talk to. They have this group. This is the contact person that you need to go to. These are some of the people that you need to meet, especially when it's a candidate was never ran before, who was not very popular on the onset of this, when they're starting. And I think that was a challenge for me. Well, overall, I tell you this, it was a wonderful experience. Door knocking, I enjoyed door knocking when we could go do it, because it gave me an opportunity to be able to tell my story, let people see who I was and why I was passionate about helping our city. People wanted to get to know who they were elected and what their story was, the message, how they were going to help. And I felt that when I was able to sit with someone or at their door, talk to them and show them the pathway, the goals and plans I had for the city, we were very effective in convincing individuals who didn't know who I was or was looking to vote for my opponent. The only challenge is that we didn't get enough doors to knock to meet everyone else. But I overall, I'm very proud of the campaign that we ran. We were very positive. We didn't try to, throw our opponents on the bus. Although, like Nina, I figured, Nina, I would have figured I would have loved to throw some punches. And in retrospect, I think sometimes it is very important that you don't get your message lost because somebody's louder than you are. So I think you have to be able to say what is wrong, what is not true, and be proud about saying that, and not just, you know, quiver and say, oh, we'll step back, because you have to be able to make sure that the voters know where you really stand. Because there was a message out there that I plan to defund the Palm Bay police. I didn't, you know, and those things, and they were circulating on social media. I didn't, I do enough, I think, to be able to dispel a lot of the notions. Although it said pretty much on my platform that I wanted to support the police and fire departments, but you know, of course, facts didn't matter to some people. So I'd want to say, anyone who's running, make sure that you are loud as well. Don't be quiet. Don't be silent. Be proud of the stance that you have. Be proud of the message that you have. And very early on, formulate that message, test it out, do whatever it is, and make sure it's very distinctive, that it resonates with people, and short and spicy. And I think a challenge I had, probably making it short and spicy and sweet and to the point. I think, you know, like, you know, here, Make America Great Again, or, you know, riding with Biden. It's those things, messaging, I think, is something I want all candidates to focus on, how the message, so that it resonates with our people. But I, you know, what is something I would do again? Absolutely. I think it's, if someone, you believe in what is right, that you are the best candidate, that you can really make a difference, I should say try and try. And I'll say that to Phil as well, try and try to make sure that don't be deterred by the negative, because that's what they're doing. You know, haters are going to hate. And that I learned. And so it was interesting, because I've never had someone bash me on social media. I'm like, what? You know, I figured I was everybody's friend. That was a real wake-up call to say, wow, there are people who have no idea who I am, no idea who my family is, but now, you know, I'm, you know, signs were put out against me. I'm corrupt. I am, you know, I'm uneducated.
Time's up.
What's that?
She was
Time's up.
just giving, yeah, she was,
Yeah. So I'll just wrap up and say that make sure that your message is clear. Be as loud as the other person is. To don't be shy, and do it, because you are the one who's going to make change in your city. So don't be shy about that either. So thank you.
thank you, Kay. It's an important lesson, and that is to be true to yourself, to be true to who you are as a human and as a candidate. You can put up a facade for a while, but sooner or later, people will see through it. And politics is a really strange business to watch people walk around as if they're a hollow shell of some other thing that they've created. In any case, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for running. It's very important. By the way, Adam, are you with us, Adam Tritt? If so, I think Adam may be our last speaker this evening. Adam, if you are here, then you have the floor. Adam Tritt for the Brevard Soil and Water District.
He needs to be unmuted.
Right. He has the power to take himself off of mute. Here, I'll go ahead now.
Adam, you have the floor.
You're good, Adam.
There we go. Okay, I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to say. I don't believe that my experience is the norm. I don't think it's what most of the rest of you have dealt with.
Well, Adam, I'll tell you what, one of the things that we ask you to cover would be, first of all, what made you get into the race? Second, what lessons have you learned? What advice would you have for others? And do you have a unique story, something that you really didn't expect, something that jumped out at you that you'd like to share?
Yeah, well, I ran this time because no one else ran. And I didn't want the incumbent to walk into the position without a fight. So that's why I ran. It's also an environmental position, and I thought I was reasonably well versed in that, and certainly I could do a decent job in it. If there was someone running whom I thought could do a better job, I would not have run. because I think the position deserves a person who can do the best job. It was much easier to run for this position than it was the other one, the one I ran for 2 years ago. I raised no money. I put up no signs. I didn't travel to 2 different counties speaking. I just did my social media thing as carefully as I could and spoke here and there and answered every single email and every single call I got. It is a nonpartisan position, which of course is a lie. And I got quite a bit of people saying they couldn't vote for me because I was not, I'm not pro-life. And as much as I would suggest to them, I am indeed pro-life of the Sebastian, that's the last position. We are ran into that there too, of the Indian River, and pro-life for our biosphere. That didn't matter because I obviously feel that it's okay for people to choose to have abortions. So, yet somehow I won by 9.5%. I think I was helped by the fact that Boo was running under the name of Boo, which certainly couldn't hurt me, and that he never published any way to contact him. So no phone number. He never replied to Hometown News. Never replied to Florida Today, and I spent a lot of time every evening replying to everybody. So that was helpful. I learned that I don't dissemble very well, and I cannot tailor my message for various people because it feels duplicitous to do so. So I don't think I could probably rise any higher than this, because anything else I would do, I would have to tell people what they want to hear. So in 4 years, someone can feel free to convince me I'm wrong, but I don't know that you'll be able to. An experience, well, the first time I ran, a bunch of Republican parents decided that a socialist shouldn't be running for office and lodged continuous complaints against me with my employer, with the Brevard County Schools. This ended up in a lawsuit, which I lost, and I now have classes to take and fines I need to pay. Not a happy camper. So to any teacher who wants to run for office, don't do it. Just don't do it. The environment that we're in just makes you too much of a target, and your job is, you've got 30 little bosses per hour that you're also supposed to grade. And no other business do you grade your boss. And so I ended up in a great deal of trouble, which in 20 years of teaching, I've never experienced anything like that. I can't really think of much else to say.
I'm curious. Many people wonder, what is the job of the Soil and Water District, and what do they need to know about what you're doing?
Soil and Water started off helping the ranchers and the farmers with best practices for their land, and helping them get loans and grants. It has morphed into at least what it's supposed to be. Today, it's morphed into a position where you are the middle person between the farmer and the rancher, between agriculture and the environment. And we're supposed to make sure that best practices are followed so that the environment is not negatively impacted by agricultural practices. Now, according to the only person, we started putting scientists and teachers and engineers on the council 2 years ago, and now there's only one original person left, and he's a rancher. He's unfortunately the head of he's the chair of it. And he has told me that our job is to rubber stamp what the county commission wants. You can imagine with Chelsea on there and me on there and John Schumann on there and Jim Sloan, this is not what's going to happen. And I believe that Mr. Crisafulli is going to, he's going to have a lot of headaches. And I like the gentleman. He's a nice person. For a rich fat cat, he's a nice person. So I'm sorry he's going to have a lot of headaches, but yeah.
One of the great things that I have seen in my experience over the years in interacting with the county board is that almost never do developers hear the word no in this county.
Well, the person I ran against is not only on the not for long still, but he's on the soil and water, but he's also on zoning and planning, and he's also a land developer. I may be imagining the potential for conflict of interest there, but.
Adam, I want to thank you so much. Thank you for running. I'm so glad that you
You're quite welcome.
And we're certainly honored to have you and every one of the other candidates that is here on our panel with us tonight. We're about to open up the floor to our guests, and if anybody would like to ask a question of any of our panelists, please use the technique we were talking about, where you go to the bottom of the screen, click on the participants link, and it'll allow you to raise your hand, and you can ask a question. Daniel McDowell is watching for those hands to come up. Something else I am encouraging, and that is those of you that have spoken already, those of you that have been candidates, this is your chance to actually interact with the other candidates and to ask questions, or if you have any great stories, if you'd like to make a comment to each other, this is a wonderful chance for all the rest of us to see you guys share your experience, your thoughts.
I've never met any of them before.
I suspect you might have met one or two anyway. But please, if you would, does anybody have any questions? Anybody just listen to what Adam said? If you've got any questions? Daniel?
No, I was just going to, housekeeping item. For those of you that are candidates and speaking tonight, you have the ability to unmute yourself. The other folks that are participants or audience will have to raise their hand, and we'll take you off of mute.
I had a comment to one of the things that Adam said.
Sure, Phil, go ahead.
I thank him for running again after having gone through that with the litigation. I also have a litigation pending with my opponent because of the lies and everything, and that was against the elections laws. But that's another story. But what I wanted to say was, it's exactly what we need people to run like Adam ran. What we see is people who run for office are the fat cats, the ones who are financially wealthy and have nothing else to lose. They can do anything they want. What we don't have enough representation of are everyday people who are teachers, people who are struggling through COVID or unemployment. We don't have enough people representing us or in elected positions who are the everyday worker. We have people who are so financially wealthy that they can fund their own campaign. That's why we need more people like Adam to be elected. So I thank him for doing that. And one other thing I wanted to talk about was on the program, I forgot to mention this, that you guys had out there. It said progressive candidates in Brevard often have to run without many opportunities for debates with their opponents. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but this was actually a strategy by Republican campaign committees to say that they were not going to have their candidates debate. And this was a running strategy that they were actually in an interview, a Republican interview on tape saying, why have our candidates stub their own toes? And they're saying that debate forums are a way for us to grab an excerpt of what they said and then use that against them, especially if they're not polished on what the issues are in their area. So they said they're not going to. If they don't have to debate and they can win purely on the numbers of the district, they're not going to. Debating is going to be a bad thing for especially new candidates for them. So that's not something they're looking to do. And I would venture to say that that's going to be a strategy they move forward and carry forward in the future.
Which is a very anti-democratic position to take, isn't it? It's like, well, if I actually say what I think or what I might do, then you can hold it against me. The Space Coast Progressive Alliance over the years has held candidate forums, which gives the public an opportunity to learn and to meet various candidates. We have found, in fact, one particular candidate, John Tobiah, who we invited to a candidate forum. He's very much a guy who loves to grab a mic and talk. He told me directly and in a moment of candor that what's in it for me? There's nothing. If I do well, they'll hold it against me. If I do poorly, they'll hold it against me. So there is no reason why I would possibly come to your group to have an event where he's exactly what you just said. They'll be recording me, and anything that I say on any particular issue will be held against me. And so, sorry, can't come. And
Nina has a question.
So it's just to add on to that. My opponent had the Orlando Sentinel interview with me, but he said he wasn't coming. So I went to that and I got in the meeting on some forum that I'd never used before. And I opened it up and he's like got his face in my face. And I go, I thought you weren't going to be at this. And he goes, oh, so did they, but I could show up. So here I am. I was like, oh, okay, that's great. And then my computer wasn't working at all because we were all on our computers at home. So it was completely horrible, horrendous. Then after that situation, we had two more interviews, one with WESH and one with ABC, WDAF. And he didn't show, he never called them back to schedule it. So since he is the incumbent, they said, sorry, but we don't give you equal time unless the incumbent is there. So I never had those two other opportunities to meet with him and make that situation with the Orlando Sentinel better, because he just decided not to show after that. And they have the upper hand being the incumbent for sure.
well, the incumbents do tend to control the board, don't they? And
They do.
it's a horrible, again, a very anti-democratic position that many people that are third-party candidates complain about every day. Is that unless you are recognized and given the opportunity to take the floor, nobody ever knows what your position is.
So
Never.
we don't have anyone in the queue for questions at this point. No one's raised their hand, just so you know.
Well, this is a wonderful. Oh, I see Bonnie has her hand up.
Yeah, I was just wondering what Adam said. He said if somebody better was running, he would not. And I think it was in the mayor of Melbourne contest that it seemed like the Democratic vote was divided. Should one person have dropped out? I mean, Democrats should talk among themselves and decide not to divide the votes. Is that something you feel you should do? Whoever wants to answer.
I bet Yvonne would be good for that one.
Yeah.
Well, actually, in the mayoral race, we only had one Democrat.
Okay, it wasn't that.
Yeah, thank you.
City council.
Yeah,
Another one.
she was independent, I think it was. No, MPA, right, Sanjay?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I think also Coco.
Right. I'll say in my race, in District 3 race, I had another opponent who was Democrat also. So I can't say for sure, but I feel like she was part of a strategy to split the Democratic vote. However, that did not work this time. When I ran before, it did split the votes. And I lost by 62 votes in 2014. And this time, with another Democrat, I won by over 2,600. So it can work sometimes and sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, that was a strategy to split the votes.
I think that's a great point. If I could interject, Phil, in the case of the nonpartisan race in West Melbourne,
Yes.
there was a slate card for the Democratic organization, which my face was on that. And there was a slate card for the Republican, and the three others were on that. So I felt like, yeah, and you get to select three. So I felt a little bit uncomfortable that even though we're a nonpartisan, we're still putting our name on, and that was our choices, because no one twisted my arm, but I felt it was important to get it out there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I can say also that on a lot of our literature, like you said, it was supposed to have been nonpartisan, but some of the literature had I'm the only conservative that's running in this race or whatever, and I mean it was your right to do that, but yeah, it was a low blow, if you will, because you know that Brevard is red as blood, so.
It is a historical technique that has been used in the elections since the beginning of the democratic process. For those who are interested in history, look at how Adolf Hitler rose to power. The Nazis actually did not get a majority of support from the German population. But what they did effectively is that they divided their opponents into smaller subgroups.
Yeah.
They therefore won, and that is how Hitler rose to power. It wasn't through use of tanks or weapons or whatever. They literally used the democratic process to split their opposition, and the Nazis rose to power. And of course, the world paid the price for that.
Larry Abdullah has a question, Phil.
Larry, you've got the floor.
As all of you know, we have seen in 2016 and this year some rancor in our politics that we have never seen before. And I have never seen it go down to this level of the sheriff and the county commissioners. And given that this individual is at least not going to be president, we don't know what he's doing yet. So it may be too early to answer this question, but how do any of you feel about the prospects that we might have, a more civil debate in 2022, or that we might be able to have our own protests without flags in our face? So, I mean, they're still out there, have been still out there supporting the election reprisals. So I'm just, if any of you folks have an opinion on the prospects for that.
It's a great question. Who on our panel would like to take that?
I select Lloyd.
I think Sanjay, were you going to?
Yeah, I'll take a stab. So you are right. I mean, on O'Galley and Patrick down in Indian Harbor Beach, there's still a group of Trump supporters that are waving their flags on the weeknights. And so, we're going to see what plays out. I'm anticipating we'll get Biden in office on the 20th. We're hearing rumblings of Trump having his own event to kick off his 2024. So what we have to do as Democrats is mobilize for 2022, because, we need to get DeSantis out of there. We're seeing the devastation that our state is taking on because of his terrible leadership. We also have Marco Rubio up. So not only do we have seats up and down with Congress, those are going to be critical. We've got a governor's race as well as a Senate race. And so what we've got to do is really not be scared of pushing out front of the issues. So if we have 2 years to get ready for this, we should focus on what are we proposing? What are those issues the Democrats stand for that we want, the folks who are going to represent us next will take on, right? So if we're looking at wealth inequality right now, we're looking at people who are it's going to be devastation. It's already devastating right now, the COVID effects, but we're going to see that play out into the next year. So who's going to take the reins and really push for an agenda that, takes it head on? I think we've got to lean into being progressives and taking on the issues and saying, look, we're not scared to say we need to take on big money in politics. We need to aggressively take on the environment before. We don't have any environment, any water to protect. We got to take on, our Black brothers and sisters are being killed right in our own backyard. We've got to really be aggressive with our stance. And I think that will carry us far. And I'm hoping that we see us push further. We're going to see Republican talking points. And it's hard because I know people get scared. They say, oh my God, you're going to be attacked for being this. You're going to get, attacked on social media for having a particular issue, a view on an issue. From my own experience, it hurts when you see some of that stuff, but that's not the wider audience. Your voter base, they want the education. They want you to talk to them and inform them and educate them. And so we got to get out in front of them and say, this is what we're offering. We're here. What can we do to help? And so I think that's how we, turn around and make sure that what happened in 2016 doesn't happen again in 2024.
Nazis did not disappear when Hitler did.
Yes, that's very true.
There were laws where there had to be re-education. Many of them had to go for classes before they were allowed to go back to work. And yet there were still Nazis. What are we going to do with these people? I know they're Americans, but
it's a great question. And in fact, it is one of the things that it keeps me awake at night. And that is that more than 70 million people voted for somebody that is in his heart an evil human being, and they have made his issues their own. It's very disturbing. Anybody else from the panel like to pick up that topic?
Joan was gonna.
I don't have the answer, but in my own neighborhood, we've got Trump flags up. They're still up. There's a few less, but one of the people that I drive by every day put up the upside down American flag next to the Trump sign. And it just hit me because I know a lot of my liberal friends who, I've seen memes that they put up on Facebook with that's the distressed country in distress symbol, basically. And it hit me. I remember how I felt the day after Donald Trump was elected, and I think they're really feeling it intensely, although I believe that I was right. We were right in our feelings because we had a sense of what was coming, and it's even worse than I thought it was going to be. But they're feeling the emotion also, and I think that what we have to do is, I really despise the ideology, but I'm trying to see these people as my neighbors and not the enemy, and it's very hard for me to do it. But we have to figure this out. I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know if we need to have our own allied groups start to meet together to try to figure this out. But if we don't change something, we're just going to have this wall and this resentment, and this could keep going on. And I sure as heck would hate this to happen every time there's an election, because there's people around by me too with the flags, like a couple of these seniors out during the day I see in different locations. And I don't know what the answer is, but I want to be part of the solution. And I'm going to try not to identify so much as a Democrat. Yes, I am one, but I don't have to be running around telling people I am. And I need to try to talk to my neighbors again. Even if it's talking about the new puppy I'm getting tomorrow. And dogs are a great thing. You can have conversations about dogs, talk about the weather. We have to find a thread to hang on to and start sewing it together again, because our country is ripped apart.
I believe in my heart that we have much more in common than we do that separates us. And the key is we know that, again, the issues will bring us together. The key is how to focus on issues.
Phil, we have Paul Kellum who has a question or a comment.
Sure, Paul, you're going to be the last one tonight because you've got 2 minutes.
Yeah, actually, I had a comment.
Sure.
As I've coached football for many years, and I've been on both sides, winning and losing. I've won some big games, and I've lost some tough games, close to state championship games and whatnot. And it's tough to lose. Nobody likes losing. But, I didn't expect the other team when I lost to come over and console me. They say, shook hands, good game, you go off and lick your wounds. You think about it. You think what you could have done better. I know a lot of Democrats felt that way in 2016. So I'm sure the Trump people feel that way in 2020. But it's not on us to to try to get them through it. They have to work through that themselves. And just like I say, a team that wins and beats another good team, it's not incumbent upon that team that won to try to console that team that lost. Say you come out and you just play harder and you play better next time. And that's what we did in this election. That's what the Democrats did by taking back the White House in 2020, because we all felt pretty bad in 2016 if you wasn't for Donald Trump. So, it's going to take time. It took time for me. It took time for us. I called my opponent the next day and congratulate him and told him whatever I can do to help him to be the best port commissioner that he can be, to please reach out to me and let me know, and I will help him do that. So that's part of the getting over it and the healing process, if you want to say for me. And I just think that it's not our responsibility, but they have to find it in themselves that, hey, you ran a good race, you played hard as you could, but at the end, you lost. But just come back stronger next time, and that makes us better. Going through pain and tough situations makes us actually makes us better. And I've always tried to convey that to my players, my kids as well, and also in this election. So I don't want anybody to go away feeling bad like we have to come up with some grand scheme to make them feel better. They have to find it within themselves.
And those are words of wisdom to end our program with. I know that we always like to give people an action item. We've already had one great suggestion, that is that tomorrow each of us should go do an act of kindness, a random act of kindness for somebody without taking credit for it. Does anybody else have any suggestions for a bit of action that we should be taking as a result of this program tonight? Any of our panelists, anybody have a good action item that you'd like to suggest?
I'll throw one out there, a little bit
Yes,
on outside. Everyone should subscribe to our local journalism. Florida Today this past year did incredible work exposing what happened with the Gregory Edwards case, what happened with my opponent taking tens of thousands in developer money. Local journalism is dying without our support. So if you can, subscribe and give it as a gift to someone as well. So that's my takeaway.
That is absolutely true. Absolutely true. I'll tell you what, when I first got involved in the Space Coast Progressive Alliance leadership, I had my doubts about the Florida Today, and over the years, what you just said, Sanjay, is absolutely true. We know that's important. Does anybody else on our panel have a suggestion? I already made a suggestion earlier that I would encourage all of you to go look at the COVID symptom study. It's an app that you can load on your phone. It's literally less than 1 minute a day that you can make an entry. It'll ask you a couple quick questions.
I have a quick one, Phil, and
yes,
that was that if we can have an action item that somebody brought up about active participation in organizations during this period of time. And since we are in great need of some volunteers, we love everyone on this Zoom and on Facebook to seriously consider joining the Progressive Alliance in some fashion. We need you. We need you now more than ever.
That's right to my very heart. Yes, sir. Many of the people that are here are wonderful leaders, wonderful people who know the power of changing your community. A couple of hours a week is all we ask, and we certainly need you. Raed Al-Shaibi would be looking for your phone call. Remember, the program must not end here. What you've heard,
Nina has something.
It might have been answered and I didn't hear it. How much is the membership for the Space Coast dues?
Space Coast Progressive Alliance has individual memberships at $25. There are family memberships for $35. $10 for a student. If you want to make a big impact, you could get a lifetime membership for $1,000, or you could have a sustaining membership, $5 a month, and anything that you'd be willing to offer is much appreciated. But What's more important than your money, I think, is your willingness to give us a little bit of your time. But we need it all. The SCPA is really, it's a not-for-profit organization. We are not a 501c3, so it's not tax deductible. But I tell you what, there's nothing like helping out a very effective progressive organization in your own community. Let me leave you with this, folks. The program must not end here. So please, what you've heard tonight, take it home, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends. Be safe as we face the holidays in this really, really dangerous pandemic period. Please join us January the 7th. That's the first Thursday of 2021. And our program will be our own SCPA officer and board elections. We also will hopefully have something to add to that. It looks to me like Raed Al-Shaibi might want to say something to close this meeting. Raed, I see you coming up. Do you want to close us tonight?
I would just want to say thank you for a great effort by all the candidates. We all work hard to be beneficial to our city that we live in, to our county, to our state. And being a bipartisan organization at Space Coast, I know we have our own thoughts and our own way that we like to be governed, and we like to participate in our environment and our, defending the rights of everyone's out there. But for all of you that ran and did not make it, the name recognition is important. And for the one who won, we wish you the best. We will reach out to you. We want to make a difference. If there's anything we can do at Space Coast Progressive Alliance, we're there to help both sides, both parties. We're here. We're all in this together. This is our city. This is our county. And our message is we're reaching out, and we want to make sure that everyone is just staying positive, especially in these rough days. And this year altogether has been rough on all of us. So just to end it, we do need some volunteers. We need some people to be with us on the board. So please join us if you have the time. We have a great team, and we will see you on January 7th. We will have a program, and we might have the election. We'll work out some more details on our board meeting coming up this Monday. But stay tuned for more details.
Thank you, Raed. And again, Lloyd Dobbs, Paul Kellum, Jim Kennedy, Joan Majid, Kay Mirage, Daniel McDowell, Yvonne Minus, Phil Moore, Sanjay Patel, Adam Tritt, and Nina Yoakum, our heroes for tonight. Thank you so much for all you do for us. We really, really, really appreciate what you have done for all of us, and we stand with you. Thank you, and a round of applause for all of them. If we could be with you in a room tonight, you would feel the love. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful holiday season. Please be safe, and we'll look forward.
Happy holidays.
And 2021, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Have a wonderful night.
Woo.